Hello, hello, historians. This is Unit 1, Note 7, which focuses on the Bill of Rights. Go ahead and in your packet find the page that looks like this. You'll notice that there are 10 boxes for each of the 10 amendments in the Bill of Rights, which was written right after the Constitution was ratified by the states, and the states were able to elect their representatives and send them to begin our federal government. And the first order of business was to make sure that individual rights were protected. And so the first 10 amendments in our Constitution were passed all at the same time in 1791. And they have become known as the Bill of Rights, or the Document of Individual Rights. And so I'll go through them with you today. We have a little hand motion practice to help you remember them. So for amendment number 1, which is probably the most well-known amendment, this is the one that lists our freedoms, in particular freedom of self-expression, and that includes being able to choose our own religion and to assemble, which means to get together in a group. For some people that means getting together in a group for religious purposes. For some people that means gathering in a group to protest. The First Amendment protects the freedom of press, which is another word for newspaper. So you can publish your ideas, and the idea here is whatever you write or say in terms of freedom of speech or that you petition for cannot be held against you. You cannot be punished. Even if you speak out against the government, you have a right to do so. So for our hand motion, you can do 5 motions with just that one finger, which represents the First Amendment. You can put it in front of your mouth for the freedom of speech, point it towards the sky for the freedom of religion, press one finger down for the freedom of press, one finger to motion somebody to come towards you to assemble, and then one signing your name to petition. The First Amendment has a couple of special clauses in it that are in particular focusing on the freedom of religion. The Establishment Clause states that Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion. So again, making it very clear that the United States government would never dictate what religion a person must be. And then the Free Exercise Clause simply means that people are free to exercise their religion or to worship their religion without any government interference. Amendment number 2 is the right to form a militia and the people's right to bear arms, which is to say that you can have a weapon. So the idea behind this being that the writers of the Constitution and then these amendments believe that the people should have weapons to rise up if they needed to against a government that became too powerful. And you can use that by making your fingers into the shape of a gun, the right to bear arms. So that's your 2 fingers representing the Second Amendment. Amendment number 3 isn't real relevant anymore, but it was at the time. This is to say that the government can never force you to have soldiers living in your home, which is what the British did to the colonists when they sent soldiers from Britain to watch over and keep an eye on those colonists and their actions. You can hold up 3 fingers for the Third Amendment, and that is 3 is a crowd to say that you do not have to house soldiers. Amendment number 4 is protection against unreasonable search and seizure. Seizure doesn't mean a physical problem, it means to take something. So the police are not allowed to, without a reasonable or credible evidence, they're not allowed to force their way into your home or to take your items. They must obtain a search warrant first. To remember that, you're going to put your 4 fingers down into a fist and knock. And that represents the freedom from search without a warrant. Amendment number 5 has its focus on people who are accused of crimes. They're not found guilty yet, and so they have certain rights that the writers of our Constitution wanted to make sure that that were protected. Including not having to testify against oneself, not having to get up in front of a jury and in front of a judge and incriminate yourself. You also can't be tried twice for the same crime, which is known as double jeopardy. When that court case is over, it is a final ruling. And then everyone gets due process of law, which means that no matter where you come from in society, that everybody gets the same treatment in terms of the law. And to remember this one, we're going to focus on the freedom from self-incrimination and just place a hand over your mouth with your 5 fingers for the Fifth Amendment. Amendment 6 also focuses on accused criminals. In this case, it has to do with trials. Amendment 6 guarantees a speedy trial, which means that you wouldn't have to sit in jail for too long until you wait for your trial date. You have a right to a lawyer, so that even if you can't afford paying a lawyer, the government will provide one for you, and you have a right to confront your accusers. For the Sixth Amendment, we are going to use our one finger on one hand to point at the other hand, which has 5 fingers on it for the Sixth Amendment, as if you're pointing at a watch for a speedy trial and an attorney. Amendment 7, people have the right to a jury trial in most civil cases. Civil cases are different than criminal cases. They often include fights over land or property or money. So you have the right to a trial jury. Now, jury trial. Jury trial has 12 jurors, and so you could use 5 fingers on one hand and 2 fingers on the other. And when you flash that hand with the 5 fingers twice, that equals 12. So you then have the Seventh Amendment equals 12 jurors. Amendment number 8, excessive bail and cruel and unusual punishment are forbidden. So you cannot set the price of bail so high that a person couldn't afford to pay it. Of course, that depends on the crime. If it's an extremely violent crime, or if it relates to millions and millions of dollars, then the bail could be set higher. But it must match the crime. And that cruel and unusual punishment is not allowed. So we do not torture our inmates or our people who are awaiting trial. We'll remember this one by using the 8 fingers on your 2 hands and making sure that you fold them down and put them behind your back as if you were being handcuffed. Number 9, there are too many rights to possibly put on the list. So the writers of these amendments realized that they couldn't possibly write every single thing down, and they also knew that times would change, and so that people would want and need and desire to protect new rights that they couldn't even think of. So Amendment 9 protects all of our rights, even the ones that aren't listed. For this one, you're just going to put up your 9 fingers, and that one that's left folded, the thumb, is representing all of those other rights that we just can't list. But there are more. Amendment number 10, the powers not given to the federal government by the Constitution belong to the states or the people. And this just means, again, that the government was given certain powers in the Constitution that are listed very clearly, and that anything else that's not listed in the Constitution is reserved by the states and by the people. So we show this one with our 10 fingers up, making a stopping motion, that the federal government cannot take more power. Stop the federal government. Okay. When you come back to school, or if you haven't already gotten one, make sure you ask me for a fortune teller to help you practice these 10 amendments, or at least 8 of them out of the 10. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.